Okay, we're going to talk about self-care and counselor burnout, one of my favorite topics to discuss because I have definitely been a victim of burnout. So I want you to first imagine we're on a plane and the stewardess begins to tell us about the safety guidelines. Who do you put the oxygen mask on first? Yourself or the child you're sitting next to? Many of you may have answered this correctly, but some of you may have said that you put it on the child first because it's our natural inclination. But the truth of the matter is you put it on yourself first, because if you pass out, you may not get it on the child, and now you're both going to be at risk. So you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself first, or you're no good to anyone else. And so this is a mantra that I feel like is important for us to live by with self-care in our field. We deal with such difficult things in our field day to day. It's hard to sit with the pain. It's hard to walk alongside people in grief. Right now, I'm thinking of so many that are grieving that I'll probably need to be with in the coming months. Things occur and we get the cases and we sit in that grief with people or the pain or the trauma. And so we have to stay healthy. Not only that, but for those of you who are in graduate school, you also are learning this craft and you're also in graduate school, which is rigorous. There's long hours of coursework. You're learning a whole new set of counseling skills. You're trying to figure out what is theory and how do I apply it. You're learning how to conceptualize a case, undergoing being taped and critiqued, learning how to be supervised. And there's just a lot of anxiety in graduate training while still maintaining all of your being parents, working, etc. Might look like that. This guy right here. So self-care is imperative to avoid burnout and impairment. And this is a PowerPoint you'll use for the reflection, the self-care reflection. We've already talked about it a lot, and I know that you hear me talk about it a lot, but it's actually an ethical code. And what the Code of Ethics says is that the ethical standard states that counselors must monitor themselves for signs of impairment from their own physical, mental, or emotional problems. And the best time we want you to do that is now. Our program has programmatic values and programmatic goals to help make sure that you are practicing self-care and you're implementing wellness in detail. I know it sounds ridiculous, but you really have to put it in your calendar. You have to block it in because life just gets in the way of us doing this. And whatever it is for you, and we'll go over that. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be expensive or extravagant. It could be as simple as 5 minutes a day. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to wash my face and make sure I go to the doctor. Those are all self-care things. Those are things that I find that go by the wayside for me a lot of times when I get busy. I'm just so tired to fall into bed and maybe just, don't do the things that I need to do for myself. I'm going to brush my teeth, but, I don't do my skincare. I will push off that checkup, that doctor, that dentist because of work and school. I'll be like, well, I'll get to that later. But all of those things are demonstrating to us as self that ourselves are important. In order to nurture the ideal self in internal family systems theory, we must nurture creativity, compassion, clarity, calmness, and in order to find joy and peace. And so when we don't do that, we run the risk of becoming burnt out. And it's hard to pull back once we do. When we get burnt out, we're almost numb because we're almost having secondary PTSD, vicarious traumatization. Now, I don't want you to feel like it's abnormal for you to become distressed at some point in your career. And I use this PowerPoint, the terms are different. This is a PowerPoint that I've actually used for professional workshops. I've actually taught and actually got my job at LaGrange College with a variation of this PowerPoint when I taught to get hired. But it's all based on research. I've done it for the court system. I think I did this PowerPoint and I tweak it a little depending on the population. So I like to do it for you guys because you're graduate students. But I have done it, gosh, for several hundred people. I've done this PowerPoint here. So I like the terminology in the PowerPoint. All of this is based on research that I have pulled. Yes, some of it's a little bit older and I need to update it a little bit, but I have some later stuff. I have a whole bunch of COVID research and self-care. I have a different presentation for that. And you'll get that later on in the program. This is just the basics. And so making sure to normalize that we all become distressed at some point. And when we become distressed, so most of us will do this. We'll be irritable, maybe depressed. We'll have low self-esteem. We could have feelings of helplessness and somatic complaints, which are physical complaints, maybe headaches, tummy aches, aches and pains, but we're not fully impaired. We're just really stressed out. And it's good to go ahead and know that, because that's not changed. That's the same. And when you know that those things are happening, you may not realize that it's from work. You may think it's something else. You may not realize the toll of the stress in graduate school and the stress of going to your site or being a new clinician is really that you're overwhelmed with work. But the first step is knowing what it is. So often once we realize we're stressed, really stressed, then we can do something about it before we become fully impaired. This is when you would really want to increase your self-care. Like, oh man, I need to back off a little bit. I need to make sure I'm going to bed on time. I need to eat a healthy lunch. I need to maybe set some boundaries. Maybe I need some more downtime. I mean, whatever it is for you, or maybe I need to talk with my supervisor or my boss and take a few less clients. Perhaps I need to, advocate for myself, etc. Workplace stress is an epidemic, and this was before COVID, before work and after work. Always a good brain break for everyone there. Look at the little cat. It's like, ah. So what I just said is what is on this slide. So when we continue to be distressed, it can lead to complete burnout. And burnout leaves us exhausted and drained. So we are unable to be present in the counseling relationship. So whenever we get annoyed or we're not looking forward to a case, we know that and that's ongoing. We know that we're probably getting into the burnout. And what that is, it involves physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual exhaustion stemming from chronic exposure to client suffering. Many of our nurses and doctors are suffering from this. In fact, we are going to have, I was actually talking with our Vice President of Academic Affairs yesterday. Oh yes, this is a current recording in 2023. I was talking with him yesterday, and the statistics, which I didn't know, we're going to have thousands and thousands. I think it was 60,000, he said, shortage in healthcare in the next 10 years. And we're going to have equally as much or more in education. And this is why, and I said, it's from burnout, isn't it? And he said, yes, it is from burnout. And the good thing about our field is I teach you this now. We teach you now. We infuse it in our career because we recognized it a long time ago. Unfortunately, not when I was in graduate school. We didn't know about it. It wasn't in an ethical code. Never heard of it. Didn't know what was wrong with me for a while. It was like, I would be driving down the road and think, that's an interesting place for someone to kill themselves. Yeah, that's a sign of burnout. And I didn't even know it. It was subconsciously just in my brain. And I was doing drug court and hearing trauma day in, day out, day in, with no control to do much about any of it, because most of the people had none of their basic needs and didn't have their children. And it's like they'd woken up out of a meth or heroin fog and their whole life was in shambles, and, often didn't have resources and food and money for taxis. And it was just a lot. And you feel like all I can do is sit with you and try to help you as much as I can in this hour. And so that led to my career choices, EMDR, et cetera. And we'll go, I'll talk about that throughout the whole program, but my development has really closely aligned with the needs of the people that I've worked with, and me feeling like, gosh, I want to do more for this trauma. But it can be exhausting. And I didn't realize what was happening to me. So with nurses and doctors and educators, they don't talk about that. That's not really a part of their curriculum now. They're catching up now, and they're realizing this is a huge part of what needs to be happening. But people are exhausted. And when we walk alongside people who are suffering, it's a cumulative and progressive process, and it doesn't just happen like immediately. And before you know it, you're having all these symptoms. And the symptoms are this. So when we get from distressed, which I love the way this, I always use this because I love the way this talks about it, because this is what it is. This is exactly how it happens. Signs of burnout then are more intense than distress. So they're not limited to emotional depletion. There's this unrelieved sense of worry. There's a loss of perspective about what you're doing in life. You feel very helpless. Remember, did you hear me just say how I felt with that drug court work? I felt helpless and inefficient. Like you've lost your children. I can feel your pain. You're in a ball on my office floor. Like you don't have anywhere to go tonight. You're trying to not smoke meth. The only place you have to go is the guy who abused you. I mean, you do that every day. And it was always, the house was on fire with felony drug court because most of the people had rap sheets a mile long, had no resources and no family support. And as we know from the ACEs study, the Adverse Childhood Experiences study, we know that they probably had a horrific trauma history. And I had to hear about it. So I know, a lot of these people had been raised in meth houses, had been, prostituted out, etc. And so you can imagine how you feel. And so if you don't have a lot of reserves and a lot of support and a lot of resources that you can get there quickly. And then you're thinking about it at home, which we never want. This will happen when you first start, and then it will happen throughout your career, because inevitably there are things that are really tough. Like when people lose children and you're sitting with them in that pain. I mean, you're clearly going to go home and think about that. Some horrific traumas, things you hear, it might ruminate with you, but that's when you get supervision, consultation, you get your own therapy, you go work out, you go walk, you breathe, you pray, whatever it is, to get yourself back in balance. Because mainly what we are able to do when we're healthy is we are able to shut that door and come home and not ruminate on it. I probably have gone on and on, but this is my soapbox, so I hope y'all enjoy it. Hopefully I am delivering it in like a TED Talk presentation pattern. My email is going off. I'm sorry, I didn't close that out when I started recording, but hopefully I was not too boring for you guys. So compassion fatigue versus burnout. And so this is another term that you see in the literature, and I like to bring it up so that it's kind of like distressed is compassion fatigue, if you think about it, but you're just fatigued. I'm gonna pause y'all so I can turn my email off. I turn my email off. So this is similar to distressed to burnout, what I just talked about. It accumulates over time, and it's a different term that you hear in the literature. Burnout and compassion fatigue can ultimately lead to becoming an impaired professional. So impairment is different. We can stop it before we get to impairment, but when we become impaired as therapists, that's the ethical issue. And then it starts to bleed over into your work. And you become making really poor boundary decisions, just overly disclosing, making the decision all about you, talking the whole time. It can lead to substance abuse or sexual exploitation of clients. Things that make us really vulnerable to becoming impaired are environmental factors that are occurring in our lives that are usually transitory, so they're usually temporary. Pre-existing conditions that we bring with us into our work, pre-existing mental health or substance abuse issues or trauma. Working with difficult populations like sex offenders and substance abuse can be really stressful. Working in outpatient mental health, also very stressful. And then working with traumatized clients can lead us to even have symptoms of PTSD or full-blown PTSD without even having the event occur in our own lives. So here's some more research on trauma exposure outcomes for counselors when we've been exposed to trauma. We can feel helpless and hopeless. We can sense that we could never do enough. We can become hypervigilant. We can have a diminished ability to be creative, embrace an inability to embrace complex situations, become very cynical. So this is when, we kind of lose our compassion. We lose our compassion. We become numbed out. We could be addicted. We can minimize, be chronically exhausted, not listen, check out, dissociation, check out, a sense of being persecuted. Everybody's out to get me, feeling very guilty, fearful, and having a grandiose feeling of inflated self-esteem. And then, what happens with complete impairment, we can even get this secondary traumatic stress or full-blown PTSD. So again, the counseling field loves to give lots of terms. So here's secondary traumatic stress versus vicarious traumatization. Secondary traumatic stress is the emotional duress that results when an individual hears about the firsthand trauma experiences of another. Its symptoms mimic those of PTSD. The symptoms can include distressing thoughts, feelings, or somatic body complaints related to trauma. More often experienced by close acquaintances of caregivers. Vicarious traumatization is distinguishable from secondary traumatic stress because it stems from cognitive thinking changes after direct and chronic exposure to trauma populations, altering the individual's perceptions, beliefs, and cognitions about trust, safety, and control. We are internally experiencing our clients' beliefs about the world. So we're now beginning to understand that stressful life events can cause symptoms of PTSD. This is from my dissertation. Yeah, I sure did. I put that in here. So when I got trained in EMDR, one of the basics of EMDR and using it with subthreshold PTSD is this study, the MOLE study. And it's a famous study out of the Netherlands, but they looked at a general population sample to examine whether stressful life events could generate as many symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder as just one T trauma, like a big worst event, and found that those who identified a stressful event versus a big trauma as their worst experience had higher levels of PTSD than those who had their worst experience was a trauma. And what's the difference? Like a big T trauma is a near-death experience, like rape, physical abuse, surviving a natural disaster, almost dying, witnessing something awful. Okay, so that's the criteria. And stressful life events are, like, the worst one in a stressful life event is a divorce or death of a loved one. So my dissertation was on coping mechanisms and how they moderate the association between stressful life experiences and subthreshold PTSD symptoms in college students. And what we found was that people who I controlled for trauma, so I just looked at stressful life events, and it was Auburn population, but I think I had 121 in my sample. But we found that a lot of students who had not had a trauma over here had symptoms of PTSD. 10 had 1, 13 had 2, 9 had 3. But if you look down here, even 5 of the students in my sample had 9. Now, 25 had 0, but look at this, it's very significant. And what was one of the things that they endorsed as their highest stressor was an increased workload at school. And you see to the right, these are the stressful life events that the students endorsed. They're the highest percentages. Now, those don't look like things we would consider trauma. So this hopefully will change your view and your lens of trauma, because trauma is subjective to the person. The person who experiences this increased workload at school and can't sleep and has difficulty with a roommate could have full-fledged PTSD from that, have symptomology. It doesn't mean it's going to stick with them forever, but they could flip into that symptomology. So what do we do about all this? I hope that was kind of interesting. So we keep calm and practice self-care. Keep calm and carry on, right? And learn and grow and change when we have to amend something that's occurring in our life that is prohibiting us from being healthy. The antidote to the problem is this, and it really is whatever that is for you. But you need to be able to be clear and be safe and feel okay. And if you're not, you need to figure out how to get there. Why do you think I push therapy? Do it now. Anything we bring with us that we have not adequately dealt with will pop its head up in the counseling room. There's a old wives' tale, and it proves me true every year. The thing you haven't dealt with will walk right into your office, and it never stops. It is, call it the universe, Murphy's Law, I don't know, laws of attraction. Whatever you are not trying to deal with, or you haven't faced, that client will come in your office and start telling you about yourself. And it is the strangest phenomenon, but every therapist will tell you about it. And we used to say that it just happened in graduate school, right? That the first client that walked in your door, was telling you about you. And it maybe not the first client, but one of the first clients. And you're like, oh man, this is, I haven't dealt with that. But really life happens and we evolve and grow and things occur throughout our life. And that's a huge transition from how it was trained in graduate school. Counseling is not a one-stop shop. Life is not a one-stop shop. Things happen. We keep peeling back layers of the onion and learning more about ourselves as we grow in different developmental stages, etc. And so inevitably that thing that you're dealing with will walk in your office. And I mean, it is a profound experience. And so you got to be healthy to be able to realize, oh yeah, okay, I got to deal with that. I need to deal with that. Yep, I'm not taking care of myself. It could be something, it doesn't have to be this horrible thing. It could be something just a wake up call, like, oh yeah, I've been putting too much focus on my work. I need to, take more time or whatever. I have a client who's not sleeping. I'm not sleeping, that kind of thing. So awareness is huge and making sure that you're healthy. I was just talking with a graduate 2 days ago, I think. And I was helping her with her APC paperwork. And it was so fun to speak with her because she's working in the field now. And she said, Dr. Veal, I used to talk about how important it was to not be tired during the day. And she's like, doing our job when we're tired is so hard. It is so hard at 3:00 if you've had a cheeseburger. So little things like you just want to curl up in a ball and go to sleep. And that inevitably will be the time that the very slow, numb, depressed client will come in that's talking like this and monotone and won't talk. And you're just thinking, okay, we've got 50 minutes. And you can't attend because you're so tired and you can't keep your eyes open. So things like making sure you eat healthy during the day, eat that cheeseburger at night, but if you eat heavy lunches and don't drink water and things like that, you're going to have a hard time counseling in the afternoon. So things like that, but also remember, have fun. Yay. Have fun. Counseling's fun. Our job is fun. It's not, I'm making it sound like it's so awful, but it's fun. What we do is fun. Seeing people heal is fun. It's rewarding. It's fun to figure things out, to me, like what is happening in the brain, what is happening with this person, why, and helping solve the mystery that they've been trying to solve their whole life is really, really fun to me. And hearing the fun stories and laughing with clients. I mean, you can hear me cackling in my office with some clients, and we didn't do that the whole time, but when we get to that point where we can laugh at everything, it's really fun. So yeah. Okay. Now, this is not an exhaustive list, but there are multiple types of self-care. There's journaling. Ugh, I don't like that, but you may love it. Eating healthy, drinking water, exercise, yoga, just stretching 15 minutes. I mean, laying on your floor and stretching before bed. It doesn't have to be fancy. Just taking care of yourself, going out for that walk, going out for that run, doing a video on your computer. I really can't say enough about meditation and mindfulness. I wish that I get on my kicks where I'm doing a great job. Meditation does not have to be this really long, arduous process. It can be 3 minutes with a timer. I'll talk a lot about that throughout the program and how you can do that because it really resets the brain. Healthy boundaries are huge, making sure you know when to say yes and how to say no. Being able to retreat and get away from your phone and from all the responsibilities is huge. You are going to have to do that. You are going to have to have phone breaks and media breaks. You're going to have to silence that email. I don't have email on my phone. I don't have apps on my phone for email. I have to log in to look. And that is the best thing that I've ever done for myself. That makes it more difficult for me to check it. And then I check it periodically and more methodically than just if an alert comes and I don't even know. So I don't have those apps on my phone. I always deny that. I don't even have my Simple Practice app. I don't have any of I don't have any apps for the college on my phone. And I check them enough, and I don't want to ruin my time when I'm not doing that. Music. I just posted the happiness challenge. I sent you guys the happiness challenge, and I also posted it on my personal social media. But one of the first prompts was music, like listening to some music makes you happy. And it does change your mood if a song that you like comes on. Prayer time, church or religious support of whatever kind of religion or church that you attend, synagogue, temple, mosque, whatever that is. Mentorship, having social support, having mentorship, having your own therapy and increased training and support is huge. When we have more training and more support, we feel better about our job. An example of this is research. Increased training and support mitigate burnout. So specialized trauma training of therapists significantly increased compassion satisfaction, which is what I feel like I have, and decreased burnout. At this point in my life, I feel like I have complete satisfaction with my job. I love, love, love what I do. Level A psychological interventions that include exposure therapy, in-depth CBT, and EMDR have the strongest efficacy for treating trauma. So once trained and fully trained in an evidence-based model, there's a belief in increase in self-efficacy, which self-efficacy is huge for us as therapists. It's the belief that one's ability to organize and carry out actions needed to produce desired results. When we realize that what we're doing is working, it feels good and you feel efficacious, like you are helping, and it's fun. It becomes fun. Also, one of the things that I like to teach is holding energy. And it's a strange concept, I know, but energy is real, and energy leaves us quickly if we are not healthy. And so when we are connecting with humans, there's energy connection with them. And we have to protect ourselves. We have to protect our energy and our empathy. And the way that we do that is by connecting, but also staying in our own energy. Grounding, breathing, meditating. I went to a training on actually holding the energy in an EMDR session at Kripalu, a yoga retreat center in the Berkshires. And it was an amazing experience. I still train with Irene, and she meditates with the clients and then uses meditative music to process with the EMDR. And what that does, and now that's really how I do all my work with my clients, is I get their nervous system calm and it's less traumatic because I've done several things to make sure that I have minimized the traumatic impact in the brain. And I'm connected with them in a heart energy. And then we go back to the trauma. And it's less traumatic to walk through it together. So, of course, that's a very advanced training, but I love to infuse that in what you're learning now. So how you can keep yourself healthy. The Sacred Path of the Therapist is a book that I read in the training that I went to. And one of the contributors to the book, Daniel Siegel, described resonance between two people. He stated that resonance makes two a part of one system, at least temporarily. Attuning to ourselves within mindful states, we have the observing and experiencing self in resonance. Attuning to others, we open ourselves to the profound adventure of linking two as part of one interactive whole. This joining is an intimate communion of the essence of who we are as individuals yet truly interconnected with one another. It is hard to put into words, but resonance reveals the deep reality that we are part of a larger whole, that we need one another, and in some ways that we are created by the ongoing dance within, between, and among us. I love that because when we're in tune and we're healthy and we're with that client, this happens, and it is an amazing thing to be a part of. And I'm just grateful that I get to do what I do. So mindful awareness is the experience of bringing one's awareness within to a moment-by-moment experience and non-attached to outcome, in which each thought, feeling, and experience is accepted for what it is. And that is what we do. And we can actually feel the energy when we're with a client when you do this. And if you guys will remind me, because I know I get a little all over the place, I get excited and I like to talk to you guys about what you're interested in, and making sure I cover everything. But I want to I'm going to do a brain map next time we meet, which is in 2 weeks, or about a week and a half. We're going to do a brain map and talk about the brain. But if you guys will remind me, I'm going to make a note, but remind me to do the energy activity with you. And for those of you at home, you could actually go ahead and do it. So I'll go ahead and tell you, and you can try it if you want to for fun. Sit across from someone, preferably someone that you trust, care about. Sit across from them pretty close, not touching or anything. And put your hands up toward the sky, kind of like you're half worshiping or praying or something. Put your hands like that and rest them down. And then just close your eyes and have the other person close their eyes and turn some music on, whatever it is, some Hertz music, some meditation music, something like that. And set a timer for 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, and sit and see if you feel anything. If you feel energy, you should start to feel energy in your hands, feel connectivity to the person. And it's fun to try it. We can try it in class as well, and it'll be fun to see how that works. Or you can try it at home with someone else. All right. So this is a self-care activity, and the purpose of this exercise is to help you take a look at how you're currently allocating the time in your life. A meaningful life is one in balance, with adequate time allocated to the activities that express your own values and priorities. Unfortunately, many people do not live their life in balance or in a way that supports and expresses what they say they value. Are you living a balanced life? On a blank piece of paper, draw a large circle to represent your life. So go ahead and get a note. If you're in your car listening to this, then when you get home, do it. And draw a large circle just on a piece of paper. Place a smaller circle in the center to represent you and label it with your name. Think of your life as a pie. Divide the slices and label them to show the various activities that you're engaged in on a regular basis. Some of the pie slices many people include are work, learning, school, family, other friendships, fun, leisure, physical and emotional self-care, and spiritual well-being. Do that activity and then reflect on your current life with a friend, a co-student, or a partner. And the way you're going to reflect is by considering these following questions. You can also do this with a family member, a partner, or whatever. So you can do this with, or a child, Am I living a balanced life? Are my priorities and values reflected in this allocation of time? The way I live my life is this next question. I try. If I had 1 month left to live, is this the way I would allocate my time? What theorist is that, everyone? That would be an existential question, right? I guess a lot of these are. Am I involved in too many activities? This question has guided my life, and I've said no, and I've stopped a lot of things if they don't go into one of the 3 baskets that I have. I have 3 baskets right now, and if they go into the basket, then it's a yes. If they don't go in the basket, it's a no. How much of my time is spent caring for others and for myself? Are there areas of my life that need my attention? Is there a dream or desire that keeps getting put on the back burner that I want to focus on now? Some of you are doing that, and it's really cool. I'm so proud of you. Here you are. You've been looking to do this, and here you are. And so, yes, you're putting a lot of time into this right now. And that's okay. What needs less attention? What needs more? Do I need to add a little more study time and a little more leisure? What changes do I want to make? What is one commitment I can now make to change the balance toward what I want for my life? And now, let's do a relaxation meditation. So I invite you to take just a couple of deep breaths, long, slow, deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. And I want you to imagine there is a beam of light, a healing stream of light shining down through the cosmos, through the top of your head, and into your body. If there's any discomfort anywhere in your body, I invite you to shine that healing light toward that area in your body. Let that healing light resonate and vibrate in and around the shape. The more light you need, the more you have available. It is a never-ending stream of healing light. That light resonates and vibrates in and around any disturbance in your body. And as it does, notice any changes in that feeling in your body. Continue to imagine that healing light way up in the cosmos and the stars, in whatever color calls to you. That healing light shines down from the cosmos, through the top of your head, and into your body, resonating and vibrating anywhere you need it to heal you. The more light you need, the more you have available. It's a never-ending stream of healing light. And that light comes down from the cosmos through the top of your head and stretches into every part of your body, to the tips of your fingers and the tips of your toes, filling your body with healing light, extending that color of light outside of your body into a sphere, protecting you, calming you, and extending that light into every being around you. And take a deep cleansing breath. Come back into your body and back into the present. That is the guided imagery light stream meditation. Self-care is not selfish. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. I have come to believe that caring for myself is not self-indulgent, but caring for myself is an act of survival. Thank you. Thanks for listening today. Oh, there's references. And this will be utilized for your self-care reflections. And here's an overview of the self-care reflection. You will listen to this talk and review the self-care PowerPoint and reflect on the following questions. What type of personal self-care activities do you believe you might use to handle stress while going through the program? What type of self-care activities did you learn about in class that you think you might be useful during this time and during practicum and internship, because your time will be more limited in practicum and internship. And so that pie that we worked on perhaps might change and ebb and flow. And I know that we can never be all perfectly in balance. So at times you'll know, like, my October and November are really busy. I know that it's midterm, it's annual review, it's advising, it's just about anything you could think of, right? And so I know that my time's more limited then, but then I know that time is coming, Thanksgiving and Christmas, where I will spend a lot of time with fun and leisure and health. I still build in self-care in those busy times though. I build in things like my workouts are built into my schedule. I get a massage once a month, and that might seem really, but I have chronic shoulder pain, probably from the way my posture and then holding trauma. So that helps me stay well and healthy, that I don't have any pain if I do the massage once a month. So I have a standing appointment for that. So those are some things that I do, and I try to make sure I go to all my kids' events and plan my schedule around all of that. I make a calendar for the year. So things like that. And I know that some of the things that I might like to do, I won't get to do during those really busy times. Please also discuss why it's important to monitor and address self-care as a counselor, and what is most important to you considering professional self-care. So based on my presentation and discussion today, I want to make sure that you answer all of these questions in a reflection and submit it. All right. Thank you. I hope y'all have a good weekend. Bye. I'm still